everyone. Morning. This is a daytime video, and there's a certain distinction that I'm trying to make between my own personal intention versus the whole resistance that's happening between me and myself, I guess. So the last two videos, it seemed like I was trying to make a point, but not really making it. And the way I see it is like anytime the point is coming to me, it kind of like slips, which means I don't really understand it well enough, or I got to it a certain way, and then after I actually like reached there, I kind of forgot the way I got to it. And so that's basically what I was trying to like explain about how we actually build our setup and our environment around this. So the story is literally like, if you go, there's a physical location that you want to go to. The more you drive towards it, the easier the road becomes, the less you think about the road, and the more it becomes natural for you to like get in the car, walk, bicycle, whatever it is, to actually go in those directions. The goal for me is to actually do the same, but mentally towards my thoughts. And basically, that's the whole like, practice makes perfect. And then suddenly, like, you're connected to your body, you're connected to your ideas, you're connected to your thoughts, and they become like at the forefront of reality, of your reality. Thus, making you kind of like, making you biased towards these thoughts and allowing you to see them everywhere you go. So, and the ending of it was this. I was like a little voice note that I sent myself because I was having this conversation with my father, and I was actually like trying to like me and him were discussing the whole difference between the visual representation of how we in the real world kind of have to repeat certain things for it to become like a part of our established reality. And the same thing for the actual mind. We kind of have to like do the same thing, but the mind doesn't necessarily repeats when in a. It's not a physical repetition. It's like a consistent approach, timely approach thing. And so the ending of it was the same way, like your eye observes and understands through that kind of like the physical engagement. And so, actually, one second, let me try to see if I can listen to it properly to explain it properly. Sorry, it's 3 minutes, man, down the line. Like, I've heard it 3 times already today. So the same way you look at something physically for your eye to observe more and understand more, the same way you look at something intentionally so that your mind's eye can observe more and understand more. All right, so that's the voice note. I don't know if anyone heard, but if you look at something physically to like observe more and to understand more, you use your eyes. But like when you're actually like trying to establish it in your mind, what do? You actually like kind of use your intention. Like I'm intentionally focusing on this instead of something else. So like that kind of intentionality behind your mental approach is what you actually add to the value of the idea, the concept that you're trying to kind of like play with. And well, the reason it actually like it still hasn't clicked is because everything I've been talking about till now kind of has to flow with that mindset in order for me to be able to pursue it on a daily basis effortlessly, which is kind of like seeming to be an issue because over the past 3 months I've been more into research mode and I've been more trying to like elevate. And I feel like even though I have to go back to a certain way of doing things, my motivation now has to be different. My movement towards it has to be different, or else it kind of proves that nothing really changed, or it kind of shows that nothing really changed. So the reason again, going back to the intentionality behind it, like how do you show intention in the real world? And how do you reflect this intention to yourself? Because it's a reciprocal relationship. You kind of create something in your mind, you go towards the real world, and you kind of like apply it, whether it's an idea, whether it's a concept, and take it like literally in school. They tell you this is what we're going to teach you, and they give you homework. So you apply the concept to your head, and based on your intention, you go and do the homework. And when you do the homework, you come back the next day showing the reality of what happened in your mind on a piece of paper. And then the teacher would be like, yes, you learned, yes, you didn't learn, and all that mumbo jumbo. Forgive me for the 10, 20 seconds that I actually was not actually talking on the phone on the video. But so you can tell I'm still trying to process this. You can tell I'm still trying to like structure it in a way that allows me to kind of like explain it properly, and I want it to center. But yesterday's conversation and me trying to explain skills and their importance and the things I'm trying to master. The reason I wrote them down is because as well, like in a conversation with my father, again, like literally, he's the only person you could consider a business partner, and I really like have the value of partnership is literally you kind of like breaking your mentality and kind of restructuring it in a way that makes more sense and establishing where you've arrived and where you've come. Most business partners, I think, are very much focused on the money and the work instead of focusing on their own growth in the company, which would automatically like allow them to kind of like expose different avenues or different like points of like revenue and different points of just like profit. But so like while I was discussing this with him, I was listening to myself and I realized that okay, so like if you're trying to master one thing, you kind of have like one thing on your mind all day. But if you're trying to master a lot of things, then you kind of like have all these things on your mind all day. And sometimes it's counter like productive because you're spreading yourself too thin or something like this. But the key that I found that actually works is the dedication for something on a daily basis, regardless if you're actually elevating in mastery and kind of shifting from one month to another. Like a couple of months, you master one thing, but you're always doing it every day, but you're focused on it. So your energy and the decision making process is going towards that one thing, or maybe two, depending on the vibe. Because like if you're going through programming, the last thing you want to do is to go through something that kind of like requires certain decision making processes or just I don't know, like it feels like programming and math kind of go together, but they don't really level up together because you can dive deep into each field, but then you apply them on top of each other. So like that's like a whole lot of different kind of focus. But music, for example, is different. Why? Because it feels like your focus towards music requires more a different part of your decision making process and understanding in order for you to kind of go somewhere. So the skills that you're building kind of are the support for what your intention is towards the world. And if my intention is to kind of like build buildings, then mostly my skill set should be anywhere from like laying tiles to laying blocks, building blocks to like casting steel and eventually, or just architecture, design stuff, colors, maybe interior design. All of these are things pertaining to the building buildings. So my intention is the goal, and then the skills that I'm building towards that goal being actually a thing that I'm pursuing that reflects my mind. My intention is reflected always with the skill sets that I'm actually building because they're the proof of my actual work. They're the building blocks of my work, of my goal, of my resolve. And I discussed that yesterday. But the reason for that is because the mind has to be able to harmonize with the body. And to be able to do that, whatever intention comes from the mind has to be observed in reality. And whatever observed in reality has to be whatever is observed in reality has to be absorbed by the mind. This reciprocal relationship, and again, like we're talking about awareness and directly being involved. Like sometimes, if you look at people, most of the time, you realize they're not involved. Their environment is influencing their mind, which is in turn influencing their reality. And that's the reciprocal relationship, starting from the outside in instead of the inside out. And Miyamoto Musashi talks about like look inside of you. There's nothing outside of you that can make you stronger, better, or anything. It's all inside. Like it's all about how you approach things and what you do with the things that you have inside of you and how you build your mental process and you strengthen your confidence. And he responds to that as a spirit because, like, with every skill you build, then your mind does not hesitate. And this hesitation is literally the key connection between like why, and it was like why you're doing something. The more the skill sets, if they're the skill sets that support it, then the hesitation is limited. Why? Because you have the tools, you have what it takes to actually come closer and inch closer. And look, it's funny because like that's literally what confidence is. And according to like the samurai, it was the fighting spirit. The fighting spirit literally only reveals itself when you have won enough battles, when you have trained enough, when you have like when you persevered enough. So when you get to a point, your fighting spirit is unshakable simply because nothing can make you feel afraid. In this particular moment, every single thing you've done kind of leads to this moment being like the top of your life, or the highest, or a high one in your life, especially because you're pertaining to those ones. Again, so when we're approaching these skills, what effectively we're doing is we're actually like building our confidence one skill set at a time and allowing our mind to visualize the road to reach where we want to reach. And well, they say start with smaller goals and do one thing. It's because that's, I think, where the way is. Because once you find out how to actually get the first goal, then all the other goals are literally the same operation, just like revisited, and the same mental operation, just kind of like revisited, making it more efficient and effective, and like restructured, and basically it becomes a refined process, and it all follows how you're intentional about your goal and how your intention is being reflected by the skills that you're actually working on every single day. Okay, I think that kind of explains it differently and better in my head, and I hope that does to you too. But thank you. I just wanted to let it out.